All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're tackling a question that can cause some major headaches come tax season. Does your individual taxpayer identification number, your ITIN, actually expire? Let's break this down. Have you ever been stuck waiting for a tax refund that just seems to be taking forever to show up? Well, it turns out an expired ITIN might just be the culprit. It's actually one of the most common and easily overlooked reasons for a delay. And believe me, the stakes are real.
So if you want to avoid those frustrating processing delays, you really have to understand the mechanics of the system. Let's break down exactly how ITINs work so you can stay way ahead of any potential problems.
Okay, let's start with the basics. What exactly is an ITIN? It's a 9-digit number, and you can always spot one because it starts with the number 9. Its one and only purpose is for federal tax processing. It's for people who have to file a US tax return but can't get a social security number. And let's be super clear, it is absolutely not an SSN, it doesn't authorize you to work, and it doesn't change your immigration status. It's purely for taxes. So how does an ITIN actually expire? Well, it's not just one simple rule. It turns out there are two completely separate triggers that you've got to be aware of. Let's look at these two rules side by side, because this is important. On one hand, you have the 3-year non-use rule, which is basically an ongoing thing that depends on if you filed taxes recently. And on the other hand, there's what we'll call the legacy rule, which came from the PATH Act back in 2015. That was more of a one-time scheduled expiration of older ITINs. The key thing to remember is that these two rules are totally independent of each other. Okay, let's dig into that first one, the 3-year non-use rule. This is the most common reason an ITIN expires these days. The logic's actually pretty simple. If you don't use your ITIN on a federal tax return for 3 tax years in a row, it automatically expires on December 31st of that 3rd year. Simple as that. Now for that second rule, the legacy rule. This one is more of a history lesson. It came from something called the PATH Act in 2015, and it was basically designed to clean up the system by deactivating a bunch of older, probably unused ITINs. It specifically targeted those issued before 2013, and it expired them in batches based on their middle digits. So if you have an older ITIN and you never renewed it back then, it's almost certainly expired by now. Okay, now that we've diagnosed the problem, we need to do some triage. Here's the thing, just because your ITIN has expired, it doesn't automatically mean you need to rush out and renew it. The most critical question you have to ask yourself first is this: do you actually have to file a tax return? And this brings us to a really important and often misunderstood point. Renewal is conditional. You only need to renew an expired ITIN if you're about to file a US federal tax return. If it's just being used by, say, a bank for an information return, the IRS says you don't need to renew it right now. But the moment you have a personal tax return to file, that's when renewal becomes mandatory. So what if you've done the triage and you've determined, yep, I need to renew? What's the treatment plan? Let's walk through the exact step-by-step process. The process here is very specific. First, you fill out Form W7, and you have to make sure you check the box that says Renew an Existing ITIN. Second, you complete the federal tax return you're required to file. Third, and this is the absolute key, you must physically attach that completed W7 to the front of your tax return. They're a single package. You cannot just send in the W7 by itself. Finally, you submit that whole package. All right, finally, let's talk about some critical pitfalls. These are the non-obvious details and the common mistakes that can cause the exact kind of delays we're trying to avoid in the first place. And look, don't just take my word for it. The consequence is stated right there in the IRS instructions. It's a very clear cause and effect relationship. If you file with an expired ITIN, you should expect delays in getting your return processed and getting any refund you're owed. Okay, this is a massive pitfall that a lot of people don't realize. If you are applying for a brand new ITIN for the very first time,
The IRS says you cannot e-file any tax return with that new ITIN for the rest of that calendar year. So, for example, if your new ITIN is assigned in 2024, you have to wait until 2025 to start e-filing. That first-year return has to be paper filed along with the application. Here are a few more common mistakes or rapid-fire style. First, if your ITIN is lost or it's expired, do not apply for a new one. You always renew your existing number. Second, spouses and dependents have special rules. They can generally only renew if they're being claimed for an allowable tax benefit on that attached return. And finally, this is a big one. If you are ever issued a Social Security number, you have to stop using your ITIN immediately and use that new SSN for everything tax-related from then on. So the bottom line is this: your ITIN isn't just some number. It's a necessary key for navigating the US tax system. The real question you should be leaving with is a simple one. Is your key ready for this tax season?